Hey, it's Mazzy and welcome back. This is a video. I'm recording this in the morning on Father's Day. I'm a father. My son Joseph lives in Portland, 3 hours away from me, and I'm not going to see him today. But this is a re-recording, so this is an alternative mix, an alternative video. And I want to feature an album. I'm going to do some background. And this is the album by David Lowery, Fathers, Sons, and Brothers. So it's an appropriate time. Now, I recorded this originally a little over a week ago, a review of this album, and I adore this album. This is one of my favorite albums of the year. I did not know originally that I was going to have a conversation and do an interview with David Lowery, Dr. David Lowery from the University of Georgia in Atlanta. And it was really a nice, just under an hour conversation around this album, an autobiographical, expansive 3 LP set, 2 vinyl CDs, and I'm sure you can stream it. You can stream it, actually, because I did listen to my car at one point while I was driving down to Portland to see my son, because I wanted to get really deep into this record. And I've always liked Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker. A year ago, just almost a year ago in Seattle, I saw Cracker for first time in a few years, probably in about 7 or 8 years. First time I've seen them, and they played at the Tractor Tavern. And when I first moved to Seattle within a year or two, I saw at the Old Crocodile, Cracker and Camper Van Beethoven. And if you get a chance to, they frequently tour together, and David Lowery obviously plays double duties, leading the vocals and most of the songwriting on both bands. And it's really great to see them together because they take slightly different directions in their music. Camper Van Beethoven has this kind of a rock and roll, you want to call it post-punk, but it's almost more Eastern folk music, klezmer music, which is Eastern Jewish, Russian violin. I mean, it's just great stuff. And of course, the song that really catapulted them was Take the Skinheads Bowling. And that's been a signature song for David. And even in that interview, I kind of mentioned that. And we really didn't go into that discussion, but I'm always curious because as a songwriter, and he's a brilliant songwriter, David Lowery is a brilliant storyteller, and that's why I like their records, as well as, you know, the heavier, maybe rock and roll side that is a mix of country and, I hate to use the word grunge because they're not a grunge band, but maybe they're a little not even glitter, rock and roll. They got a heavier sound. Cracker has a heavier sound than Camper Van Beethoven, but they both can rock in their own ways. And that's why it's great to, if you had a chance to see them both back to back, you see the slightly different directions. David Lowery is very much known as the writer of Take the Skinheads Bowling, that song. It's almost like a novelty song to some people, very much like Warren Zevon's Werewolf of London. A lot of people I find when I mention Warren Zevon, if they're not of a certain generation or just maybe didn't pay attention, when I say, you've heard Werewolves of London, they go, oh, of course, that's who Warren Zevon is. But Rollin' the Thompson Gunner, Headless Thompson Gunner, Hasten Down the Wind, Lawyers, Guns, and Money, all these great songs, beautiful songs, heartfelt songs, crazy, weird-ass songs like My Shit's Fucked Up, autobiographical songs, too. Warren Zevon, to me, is one of the great American rock and roll songwriters. And then, and maybe, I hate to compare, but I always do, one of my favorite, I think one of the best American songwriters ever is Randy Newman. But if you ask people to name Randy Newman songs, they'll name Short People, I Love L.A., and then maybe You Got a Friend in Me. And all these great songs like Baltimore, Louisiana, 1927, You Can Leave Your Hat On, Political Science, an amazing, amazing songwriter. And I'm always wondering with artists, like when they're so defined by a song, even though they've written great songs beyond that, how that affects them, or if it does. And we really didn't get a chance to dive into it. But the basic of this record, it's 3 sprawling sides of autobiographical territory. Growing up, his family life. He did this in lieu of a written autobiography of a book. People have been asking him over the years to do an autobiography, but his wheelhouse is a songwriter. So we started putting this together, and this is in lieu of that. Another reason he did it is because they were so lucky. They didn't struggle. You know, in rock and roll biographies, you struggle. There's all the drug addiction. There's not any drugs involved, but you have sort of the, rock bottom things. Of course, in our conversation, it talks about the band Cracker literally being broke. And that's another reason to watch that conversation and listen to David tell that story about that. There's all these great moments here that they were very lucky. And that's why he didn't want to just be another author of another rock and roll biography where everything kind of goes up and then goes down. He had a blessed life, you might say, to some extent. I'm going to go back in time. Like every friggin' TV show you see on cable starts in the present, and then all of a sudden it flashes back 2 weeks after the murder, or it goes back 10 years or early years. And in a way, that's what this record that came out last year on Cooking Vinyl. Now, the new album is on Cooking Vinyl. David Lowery and I have a Bay Area connection. In the greater Bay Area, obviously, he formed Camper Van Beethoven down in Santa Cruz, going to UC Santa Cruz. And last year, Cooking Vinyl put this retrospective together. And interesting hearing about this and reading the liner notes on this. This is, again, another sprawling, beautiful 3-record set put out by Cooking Vinyl. What's interesting about this, and partly because of economic reasons, the reason it's the alternative retrospective of Cracker, because a lot of this original music is tied up with Virgin Records, which is now part of Universal. And licensing from the labels these days is so expensive for bands to put together. And what David and Johnny Hickman, the guitar player, I mean, they are literally the essence of that. And you could compare them, not musically, but like Steely Dan, where you got the two guys are the nucleus of that band. And over the years, different musicians come in and out, they collaborate, they come back again. And that's what Cracker was, essentially the brilliant duo of Johnny Hickman's guitar. The voicing of his guitar is the perfect complement of the voicing and the vocals and the lyrics of David Lowery here. And what they did is they took live tracks, they took outtakes, they took demos, they took different variations, versions that they had the rights to, and put together this overview. Because, years earlier, Virgin did put out a kind of best of, what is it called? Garage d'Or, this double CD, which I have in my collection, which was, a best of the time. But Cracker has lasted some 35 odd years. So there's a lot more music, and I didn't follow it all, to be honest with you, but a lot more music out there that David and Johnny wanted to bring in and put on this record. One of my favorite songs of Cracker's, in fact, my favorite song of Cracker is Big Dipper. And I can totally visualize the Big Dipper in Santa Cruz. I know that college town. I had a girlfriend I went out with for a short time that lived in Santa Cruz. So I spent some time down there way, way back. I think pre-Camper Van Beethoven. And so I wish we could have talked more about that song, because I just think it's a special song. Again, the guitar, the piano, and that slow, that song could go on for an hour and I'd be happy with it. I just think it's a beautiful song, beautiful storytelling, great guitar work, just a great arrangement, and the recording is impeccable. But the version on here is very close. I mean, it's as good, but it's slightly different, but not really far off. And so this is the thing, Victor Kromenecker, I guess I pronounce his name, one of the original members of Camper Van Beethoven, also an art director and designer, has done a lot of great artwork, designed this package. This is a trifold, which is an amazing record, colored vinyl all the way. But check this out if you want an overview of Crack, but the alternative versions, not just B-sides, but it has some really interesting mixes and different takes on it. But let's get back to this. And I'm going to go back and forth like those TV shows now. This is where we are today. This is a beautiful Americana record. There's a lot of acoustic sounds. The basic tracks are David playing the acoustic guitar, and he records them digitally. This is later cut and mastered for analog, and he talks about that quite a bit. I asked him about that because we all know there's certain people that, oh God, if it's a digital recording, why bother putting on vinyl? But things are mastered different for vinyl. You don't have the same mastering for CD. Some people do, and that means the vinyl could be crappy. But in this case, this is a beautiful sounding record. In terms of pressings, people want to know, quiet, flat, great pressings. I don't know where these were pressed. Is it Europe, Poland? It says made in Poland. So Polish record here. This is a record covering 60 years of a life, basically. And I can't remember anybody else doing anything remotely like this. I was thinking about this, and we do talk about it in the interview. I've never experienced an expansive autobiographical record like this. Of course, there's the breakup record of Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. There's Plastic Ono Band John Lennon going through his loss of his mother and his father, and the personal tumultuous situations he had in himself, and leaving off and getting rid of the Beatles and being in love with Yoko Ono. There's a copy of a best of Bobby Darin, the Bobby Darin story. Now, it's the early Bobby Darin stuff with Mac the Knife and La Mer the Sea, Beyond the Sea. And the intros, there's like several intros throughout of Bobby Darin talking, doing the intros. Now, to some people, that's kind of kitsch, right? He's doing, I remember 1959 doing this in front of, this was the biggest hit of my career, and he goes into that. It's fun for that reason, but it's nothing as detailed and personal as this record. Of course, that stops at his earlier stuff, not when he became sort of the pot-smoking hippie folk singer in the late 60s. I'm a big fan of Bobby Darin, too. So, any songwriter's got to appreciate, even though Bobby Darin was more of an interpreter than a songwriter. And it's interesting that I'm talking about in the same video, Bobby Darin and David Lowery and Warren Zevon and Kemper Van Beethoven and all these artists, because even though they sound nothing alike, at essence, they're true to their music. And it really comes out on here. He talks about, being a young child at the bullfights and, Papa, do they really kill the bull? It's a touching, and the way he says that. Disneyland jail, we talk about that a little bit. I've had that experience too, in a way, going to Disneyland and taking drugs. For me, it was in the late 70s. For him, it was probably in the 1980s here. Everyone's got a fucking day job. I mean, it goes on, telling the story of him going back to his storage locker in Redlands, California, found it broken into, all his records, and some of his gear was stolen. We talk a little about that. So he doesn't really have the record collection he once had because of that. Even the songs on here, he writes and sings about the record business, can seem like an insider thing, but they work. In terms of the storyline, it works. You don't have to know about that to make it work. I love the Americana feel, acoustic guitar feel, these just really wonderful swirling pedal steel tracks, couple of harmony female vocals on here, violin, fiddle like he had on Kemper Van Beethoven, but just really simple arrangements. The album has a really good vibe, a very consistent vibe. When they hit the song Fathers, Sons, and Brothers, with the bell raise, the vocal bell raise on here, that is the one song that almost breaks up the consistency. And it changes things up. It's the more produced, it's the more lush. David Lowery speaks about that production and how they came about, because I asked him about that in that interview. So again, listen to that, because he talks about how that came about and why it is so different. It's more of a produced thing with strings, and it's a whole different feel than the entire rest of the album, but it's kind of nice at the end of side E, side 5 on here. It's an excellent record. Again, a trifold on cooking vinyl. Beautiful photography. Like the Cracker Alternative History, it's got a book, very similar in scope. Some wonderful photography. All the lyrics are in here and who plays on everything. So following the story is kind of a nice thing. Maybe not initially, just listen to it, let it envelop you, and then at some point sit down. And I tell you, it's been a while since I've wanted to invest myself in an album and really sit down and follow the lyrics through. I think the third time I listened to this through, I sat down and followed the lyrics completely. And it was really kind of a really wonderful experience. Again, we're about 5-6 years apart age-wise. You know, we overlapped in terms of growing up in similar places part of the time. He lived in the East Bay for a while, in Richmond, obviously Santa Cruz. He's in Atlanta or Athens, Georgia now, where he is a professor teaching a business school of music business. I do want to go back a little bit because my first copy of their first album is this version. This is probably a second press. This originally came out on independent project records that do these wonderful silkscreen covers. Rough Trade picked it up. I think I picked this up when Rough Trade had a store on 6th Street in San Francisco. Very recently, Cooking Vinyl for Record Store Day put this wonderful version out. And if you can find a copy, I highly suggest. This is the album with Take the Skinheads Bowling. It's got that klezmer music type style, very folky, but very fun. He said in the interview, this was recorded for $400 in someone's garage, and it kind of really took off. They used the same art plates from the original printing company of the independent printing project. I also have this EP, which has Take the Skinheads Bowling, along with some other songs on the B-side. But I just think this is a wonderful thing. Now, this record is interesting. I just recently picked up a copy of this. This is a British pressing. This is Camper Van Chadbourne with Eugene Chadbourne with Camper Van Beethoven. And this is an esoteric piece. Now, Eugene Chadbourne is this writer-reviewer, guitar player, banjo player. I think he invented some instrument with a rake, with strings and a rake. And they do some covers on here, Reason to Believe, the beautiful Tim Hardin song. And the stuff is inside out. It's quirky. It's like freak folk music. Think of a little bit of a Daniel Johnson bent, where it's a little kind of special people needs work music. It's out there, but it's so fun, and he puts a smile on your face. At the end of side one, they do a Zappa medley, and it sounds like that early Zappa where they speed up the vocals, and it's hysterical. I love that. They do a interesting version of Ballad of Easy Rider, of course, the Bird song. Hum Allah is a quirky, I believe that's the instrumental, kind of twisted, folky, psychedelic music. I love that. There's a song called Psychedelic Basement, which is not as psychedelic as Hum Allah. They do a really interesting version of Careful with That Axe, Eugene, the Pink Floyd song on there. And you get the scream. You get that Roger Waters scream in their way. So again, a quirky, twisted version. I don't know if this is in the Acid Archives, but if it's not, this is the kind of album that should be included in that book, The Acid Archives. I need to look that up. I just thought about that. Of course, then they signed to Virgin Records. Camper Van Beethoven, this is Our Beloved Revolutionary Sweetheart. This is so good. I remember getting the CD of this initially, and the vinyl I bought because I love this record so much. And it gets into this very kind of rockin' klezmer sound again with the violin and the gypsy feel on here. Again, Victor Krummenacher on bass, Greg Lisher, the guitar player. And a lot of times when both Camper Van and Cracker play, you get Greg playing with the band here, and you get, obviously, Johnny Hickman playing with Camper Van Beethoven. I think they've overlapped sometimes and played together, which is kind of cool. Sometimes Cracker will play a few Camper Van Beethoven songs. Chris Pedersen on drums, and Jonathan Siegel, strings, mandolin, red guitar, piano. Just a great band. Dennis Herring produced these records on Virgin, who had produced some of the Cracker records as well. I just think this is a magnificent record. I love it. And then, of course, they do Camper Van Beethoven's Key Lime Pie. And this is the one where they had somewhat of a hit with Pictures of Matchstick Men, the Status Quo cover, and it had a big hit on this. So are you keeping up with the timeline a little bit? It's not quite in chronological order like his autobiographical record here, but it's my take on my collection of this work to present to you a little bit of a not so linear dissertation or discography of David Lowery and Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker. They put this out. This is Tusk. They basically turn Fleetwood Mac's Tusk album inside out. This is experimental, this is out there, this is freaky, this is brilliant. I asked David about this, we talked about this a little bit, and I suggested, not that they need my opinion, but that Cooking Vinyl put this out at some point as a record stay issue on vinyl. I don't think it ever came out on vinyl, but this is hysterical. And this is really fun. If you want something that's a little out there, again, freaky, folky, rock and roll, twisted, trying to cover every song on that Fleetwood Mac album. I love the Fleetwood Mac album. And they kind of do a good homage to this album, Tusk. So I'm hoping that comes out. And then they did a lot of other records that I frankly didn't keep up with. And I didn't keep up with all the solo records of David Lowery to that point. And I'm really bummed because about 2 months ago, Camper Van Beethoven celebrated their 40th anniversary from 1985 to 2025. And they played 1 or 2 shows at the Fillmore, sold out shows at the Fillmore in San Francisco. And I wish I had known about it. For some reason, I wasn't paying attention. I would have gone back to San Francisco and attended those shows. And you can see a lot of it on YouTube, the visuals of it. So a couple years after Camper split up, David Lowery forms with an old mate of his, Johnny Hickman, great guitar player, as I said earlier. And this is the debut album on Virgin. I believe Virgin, I think, wanted the Camper Van Beethoven name because they've already invested time promoting that over the years. But this was a different band. This had a different vibe to it. There's a little more like rock and roll glitter, bluesy, great hook still, what we now call the whole indie scene, which was happening since the 80s, obviously, college rock. The song Teen Angst got a lot of sort of alternate college radio, MTV 120-minute type of play. Teen Angst, What the World Needs Now. And happy birthday to me, too. What a wonderful record. I just love this record. Now, this is a music on vinyl release, and obviously Virgin now is owned by Universal, so I have no idea who's curating these, and I think the Cracker needs a really wonderfully produced vinyl set. These are pretty nice, but there's no like official U.S. vinyl series doing it right. Universal sometimes does things right, but they do a lot of stuff wrong. So maybe it's good that they're licensing it to a third party, in this case, Music on Vinyl out of Europe. But this is an excellent record. So this is their debut record. Then Cracker's second album was Kerosene Hat. On vinyl, again, another Music on Vinyl record. 2 records because these bands made their records on CDs so fucking long. Again, only Music on Vinyl. No American edition. You can get this on and off online. These sound really good now. I don't know the provenance of them and who mastered them, but they sound excellent. I'm a fan. I hope the artists are getting their cut of the money here. That's why it's interesting, the conversation of with David Lowery about music and the whole rights issues and things. And that's why that alternative record was so important, I think, to the artist and to Cooking Vinyl, too, because it would have cost them so much to license the original tracks totally on this. But this is an excellent record, and this had a hit. This had a hit that got a lot of, like, again, college radio, alternative radio play, and a song called Low on here. They did really well. They did some sales on these records, so I love this record. I found a copy of this on vinyl for the first time when I was in New York at the WFMU Record Fair in 2023. I've had the CD since it came out. This album, to me, is my favorite of theirs. And as I said already at the beginning of this video, for whatever reason, that song, Big Dipper, from this record, just every time I hear it, I want to play it 5, 10 times. It is so beautiful. It's so just a wonderful vision. And I've been on that Big Dipper in Santa Cruz at the boardwalk. I've spent time down there. His quiet vocals on this song, matched with the guitar vocalizing of Johnny Hickman, and the beautiful piano just floats through that song. It just, I get emotional every time I hear it. Seriously, I know that sounds cliche, but it's such a great thing. This album deserves to be in print, and probably because of licensing, it may not be something Cooking Vinyl would put out, but someone needs to do an excellent version of this, because you know, this is like $100 plus record right now if you try to find it, which is just atrocious. Get the CD at least, but I think this is a perfect album. Gentleman Blues, another one. I don't know if this ever came out on vinyl. Maybe in Europe. I think there's an album after this, Forever, that I don't even have. And both these bands put out albums over the years that I just never really followed along with. So that's my collection of Cracker and Kemper van Beethoven, and of course now with David Lowery. But in 2023, when I found that copy of The Golden Age, and that song alone is killer. And around that same time is when I saw David Lowery, a little after that again with Cracker. First time in maybe 7-8 years I'd seen them. I just got a whole new appreciation for this music. And this is one of those records that it's going to be in my top 10 this year. It's already in my top 3 or 4 records right now of the year. And we'll see how it goes. But 3-record set, color vinyl, Cooking Vinyl Records, whether you play it digitally or buy it on vinyl, check it out. So thanks again for watching. And thank you everyone for supporting the channel. Mazzy loves you. Oh, by the way, when I saw Cracker, I forgot. When I saw Cracker last year at the Tractor, I actually bought this t-shirt. This is Johnny and David. And of course I didn't wear it when I had this conversation with David, because isn't there a thing, and you put it in the comments below, that you shouldn't wear band t-shirts to the band gig? I see it happen, but I thought there was a thing that, you know, don't do it. So I'm not going to sit there like a fanboy with David Lowery, but I can do it for this video because I'm 2 degrees, 3 degrees removed from the conversation. So Cracker, anyway, Mazzy loves you, sort of, or some of you. Thank you.